Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Solar Systems, where we help you understand the system your soul goes into. And today we're going to be talking about your Saturn placement. Now, as you can tell by my shadows, I've recruited a team of people to support me. So we'll be talking about your Saturn and Libra placement. Now, before we get into it, this is actually Saturn's exaltation, so get exasperated, get excited, and really just experience the bliss of having a planet in its exaltation, because if you're wondering why things always end up supporting you and going in your favor when using this part of yourself as well as this aspect of life, this is the answer. Now, you know the drill. Before we actually get into it, we have to break down each individual aspect of the planet as well as the sign and then how they work together. And then we'll wrap it up and break it down and position it in a way so that you can actually understand it for yourself. Now, with that being said, let's actually talk about your Saturn side of this, right? So Saturn is the planet of boundaries, restrictions, limits, how you conduct yourself in the public arena and as well as how you structure your individuality. So with that being said, what does this actually look like? What is a boundary? What is a restriction? And what is a limit? So in actually discussing what this is, a boundary is a rule or a limit or a point of no return, right? So back in the medieval ages, we had cities and city walls. So these cities are what the individual or the thing that wanted to be contained was, and the walls was the boundary. This is our space, this is our limit, this is how far we'll go. And then the limit is the actual action or the applied version of a boundary, right? This is how far you can go, this is why you can go this far, and I have no real emotions about it. This is just how and why we're actually doing this, right? So with that being said, let's get into it a little more. Now, with this applying to your individual self as well as the world around you, your Saturn sign is how you deal with the rules that are placed on you, right? And how your own individual rules and morals apply to the rules that you're facing within the external world. Because not only do you have rules in the outside world, but you have rules in your inside world. More often than not, they are displayed as your morals or your actual standing and stance on certain aspects of life. And then you have to go through a whole thing and weighing balance, no pun intended, of the actual rules in the world, which is how you define in which ways more. So speaking of balances and scales, let's actually get into the sign that you have this placed in, Libra. Now, Libra is the cardinal air sign. Libras were born from the 7th house, the hip chakra, the space of relationships, not group relationships, one-on-one individual relationships. Libra is the sign of indecision at times, but it's also the relationship sign and the sign that is always open to communication. Now, why it is seen as the sign of indecision is because it's always trying to produce balance. It's always trying to balance the scales. And the best way to experience balance with a situation that you kind of don't like and is kind of stressful, that would require you to be an individual and pick a side, is to not pick any sides whatsoever. It's to let it play out for itself. Libra is the king or queen of letting a situation work itself out, because at the end of the day, the universe's natural feeling and space in life is balance, right? So with that being said, let's get a little more intimate with Libra and actually break down its likes and dislikes. So as we know, Libra opposes the sign of Aries. Aries is the sign of creation, spur of the moment, just doing things, right? And with that being the case, Libra doesn't really like individuality as much and is not quite as comfortable with it. Libra prefers a lot more air sign things, a lot more light things, a lot more communicative things. Things that just put it at peace and allow it to talk about these ideas and have someone go along with it, but not necessarily being the point person or the spark of an experience. So once you move on a little bit and you actually build up your own personal social structure and social hierarchy, before you actually leave your house and become 18, you may have started just getting good at finding certain people that can actually support you in what you want to do. Because if you had any actual other Libra placements, such as Mars, Mercury, or anything really in the 7th house, you may have noticed that that planet's energy and the steward of that planet's energy has been externalized by you for one reason or another. So with that being said, this energy is interesting because when you have Saturn here, Saturn's all about putting things to work. So when you're about 12, you have a friend group, say, you're not quite the leader of your friend, but you're essentially the quartermaster of what people want to do and what they have and what people are, accounting for. You will begin to start putting people in certain places, spaces, and locations to benefit you or the group for whatever reason, right? Saturn in Libra is a perfect energy to not directly be in power, but yet govern behind the scenes. Yes, it does sound manipulative, and honestly, there is a lot of manipulative undertones to all signs and all energies because at the end of the day, gaining the most energy and attention is the name of the game for spirituality, but that's neither here nor there. That's a whole other situation. With this being the case, Saturn in Libra is a very powerful sign for getting people up under your ideology system, getting people to work under your tutelage or your direction on things that you may collectively want to achieve. Because at the end of the day, that is the underpin that if anybody ever says you were coerced or manipulated, quote the 48 laws of powers on this words, you must find your enemies and your association's thumbscrew, where you find something that can also undermine their claims if they were to ever go against you per se, whether that be dirt, grime, smut, however you want to frame it, right? But at the end of the day, a Saturn in Libra's linchpin in this type of situation is you've always had a shared intention. You always created a relationship for the same thing, right? You were just the one that knows how to structure it better and get someone to do most of the work for you. But it's not like you don't know that because you spend all of this time working on different values, different forms of etiquette for different levels of society, right? So at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. When you find someone's etiquette, you often find their values and you often know how they're going to operate better than them because you spent so much time figuring it out and collecting all of these things, and you wouldn't work with this person otherwise if you didn't have all of these things in order to protect yourself. This is why these people are very good for having lawyer-style conversations because they're very good at finding the exact contracts and agreements between people, whether it is verbal or not. So they kind of know how to lawyer up and proverbially balance the scales between parties and actually get to work on these things. So when actually applying the Saturn and Libra energies, this is typically what you will find yourself doing. So more often than not, you will probably find yourself working with people that you like, working with people with shared intentions, and working with people that actually can help you get to where you want to go. Because you most likely have defined your terms of engagement before actually entering into any experience. So with that being said, people don't like this because at the end of the day, you more or less just played the game better than them. You essentially know where your common ground is and you always know what you want to do. So with people not exactly defining your intentions, there can be a lot of gray area when actually applying this. So when you're using this, right, as mentioned, the most important thing that you always do with this sign is you always lay out your boundaries, your own limits, your own restrictions, which is usually sparked by your actual intentions, right? So unlike most Libra placements, you have a desired attention, a specific reason, and you know exactly why you're doing something when you do it, or you know exactly why, how, and when someone told you to do something, which might be more of the case when you're starting out, especially if you don't have your own signs that produce natural cojones energy. But once you do get your own ducks in order and you do start applying these things, when you have your own intentions, boundaries, and limits set up in almost every situation that you actually go out and experience without even thinking about it, because this is a planet in its exaltation, it does it on its own, you are merely a vessel for what is going on. This can get annoying and can cause a lot of issues because people don't like being out-argued before they even step into a room, right? Because it doesn't take too many situations for you to gain that reputation of being like, here, we got into this because of this. I told you that if you do this, I'm not going to be happy about this. And they can't really make a case against you because your case was laid out before they even hit the floor or the situation even occurred, which is the whole point and why everybody should have a knowledge or an ability to set out boundaries and limits for themselves around their own intentions. But hey, that's not everybody. There is a such thing as the mutable energy out there, which you may have heard about. Now, with that being the case, Saturn in Libra is a very powerful sign for this because you know at the end of the day that architecting an intention and getting people to do the work for you is the most efficient means of structure because you only have 24 hours in a day. If you wish it was a Saturn number and you had 27, but you don't. So with that being said, it's best and most efficient for you to find someone to actually help and do these things. But this is why I mentioned that people who may be working under or with you particularly don't like this about you because they can't get one over on you. And in some weird way, it's a good metric to find who you're working with and how far you can trust people. But at the end of the day, if you have this placement, your aspirations are probably a little higher than waiting for everybody that you can trust completely with all your heart and just spill out all your guts and know everybody to the fullest degree, right? Because that's not business. That's not how business is conducted, and especially if you're in a space where you need to be safe and secure and have to make cases against people, it is what it is. Now, with that being said, this energy does open you up to possibly screwing people over, your intentions, your mission, whatever. But you do want to watch out for that because you don't want to always be in a space of kind of doing that. But once again, we can't get too deep into this aspect of it because that depends on what house you have Saturn in Libra. But I will warn you, if you have it in the 5th, 8th, 10th, or 11th house, you may want to watch out and be careful with who you decide to work with and who you want to assist with being out-argued by anything you have to say for whatever relationship you get in. But other than that, you will most often be very happy with how you structure your life. You will be very happy with how you schedule things. You will be very happy with the people that you bring into your life, and you will know the exact boundaries, purpose, and means of space that they can actually work with you in. And a lot of this will bring a lot of good energy to you. But before we close this out, let's actually review Saturn and Libra and the gist of what we learned. So, Saturn and Libra, right? This is the planet of boundaries, restrictions, and limits, and its exaltation sign. So, with that being the case, we learned that this sign goes through a nice level of schooling when learning etiquette and how to deal with different people between different levels of society. We learned that this helps build the own Saturn and Libra natives' morals, structures, and internal boundaries for themselves. And we learned that once these people know how to apply it, they will find that they've learned it better than their peers. So then they can sort of enter into a situation or a circumstance where they can see different aspects of how they can structure different people and potentially have a whole puppet master situation of manipulation energies with their social group, because they see that they have the natural abilities to kind of lead from behind the scenes regardless of if they are the actual leader and point person or not. It's like the queen in the king's ear, the court carl, or the house jester whispering and doing whatnots and just causing scandals amongst the kingdom. However, it's probably with more purpose and intent and actually is better because these people sort of carry the energy of the esoteric quartermaster as well as the possible actual quartermaster whenever in a group, because they have a much better ability to account for what people have said, what's the main intention was, and account for what things they actually have as a group or a collective. So with that being said, this sort of leads into when people apply their natural Saturn, which is where they define their own terms and intentions and internal boundaries for themselves, which makes them a little better once they start aggregating people to do actual things as a group, which can be good for the most part, or if it does go bad, they always have their intention jotted down somewhere, whether that be physical or in their mental capacities, just making sure that they have an account for everything going on, as well as just making sure that they have everything in order, because at the end of the day, they do know that having other people doing the legwork is the most efficient means of getting something done as fast, efficiently, and as well as possible, because they know at the end of the day that they don't know everything, so why not hire an expert? Now, with that being said, that's Saturn and Libra for you, so I'll catch you in the next one. Enjoy.